Good afternoon, friends. Let me first of all welcome all of you to AAA Winner Series webinar. As all of you are aware, we have started this concept of Winner Series webinar since last about 6 to 9 months, and this is the webinar in continuation of that. Earlier also, we had invited founders and managing directors of companies like Cummins, Navin Flooring, TCI Express promoters, Century Plywood promoters, and today is the 5th series thanks to encouraging response received by all of you that we thought to give more emphasis on our efforts to bring the best of the industry leaders to give you perspective on the on ground, what are the trends, what are the changes in technology, how the industry stalwarts are looking at Indian economy, and most importantly, how the companies which they are steering are capitalizing this opportunity. In that efforts, let me introduce you to Mr. Srinivasan. Mr. K. Srinivasan is Managing Director of Kirloskar Pneumatic. And I'm very thankful to you, Mr. Srinivasan ji, for accepting our invitation and to be part of this webinar. Welcome, Mr. Srinivasan.
Thank you, Rajesh. Good. Thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Friends, before we start, let me give a quick introduction of Mr. Srinivasan. He has a 44 years of experience in Indian capital goods industry. Currently, he is Managing Director of Kirloskar Pneumatic Limited, KPCL, as we all are aware, one of the flagship company of Kirloskar Group with a legacy of 133 years. Probably many of you, and at least I was not born before 133 years, so a really long legacy, and it is those legacies I always believe that helps the investors and the fund managers like us actually to identify companies, because only those companies which have seen ups and downs of last not only 1 decade, 2 decades, but century and probably more than one, almost close to 1.5 century. That's kind of experience this group brings on table. Mr. Srinivasan ji, before joining Kirloskar Pneumatic, he was Managing Director of Carborundum Universal, a well-known Murugappa Group company, and he joined that company long back in 2005. Before that, he was with Vent India, and then Vent got merged with Carborundum Universal, and he expanded Carborundum Universal from India to a company to be recognized on the global map. He has worked on various capacities, being at the helm of affairs of that company, and he was recognized for his efforts as the best CFO of the country. With such, what I would say, milestone journey, Mr. Srinivasan is now basically, having a vision and mission to grow KPCL, the Kirloskar Pneumatic Limited, to its new heights. Once again, welcome, sir. Thank you very much once again for accepting our invitation and to be part of this AAA Winner Series webinar.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Sir, what I will do is that, since you are a veteran of Indian capital goods sector and you have seen this sector from, I would say, from 1990, correct me if I'm wrong, 44 years into the industry. And this industry has seen its own upturns and downturns. I'm talking about the capital goods sector in general. And if I look at last 10 years, it was like, winter for Indian capital goods sector. Most of the companies have basically growing at about, from 2010 to, or 2009 to 2019, many companies were kind of stagnant. Of course, many companies went down under the water. And from last 2 years, we are seeing, as Mr. Birla has rightly put, the Amrut Kal of capital goods sector, the Mahotsav, Amrut Mahotsav of capital goods sector. So what are your views? Do you think that, that moment has arrived? Or do you think, there are always skeptical on the industry and they say it is probably a false kind of alarm, it may not happen. Again, the cycle may derail. What are your views without any bias on the sector, and how one should look at it, the capital goods sectors from here on?
Yeah, thank you. Let me answer your questions in three parts. The first one is, if you look at the sector itself, capital goods being a part of the manufacturing sector, India's manufacturing sector has predominantly been moderate. It's also not been very high-flying, big growth sector as such, largely focused on the Indian market and not doing too well on a global scale. So we always had that overarching constraint that as a manufacturing economy, we were not as big as we could have been. There are multiple reasons on it, and I will dwell on it a little later. The capital goods sector itself in India, roughly, if you look at capital goods, we would roughly be about a $55 billion size in India, what is made here. And about the same amount is what is imported into. So roughly about $110 billion. So that's not very big. And we have been clocking a CAGR of about 5.5%. So it is not seen as a very attractive sector for investments for many years now. Now, that is something that is likely to change and change pretty dramatically going forward. You mentioned about the next 25 years, Amrit Kal, as they've been calling it. If you look at what many industrial associations, government have all been putting out, we're talking in terms of getting India to about $30 trillion economy in the next 25 years by 2047. And at that size, capital goods sector is likely to be anywhere between 1.2 to 1.4 trillion dollars. So that will move up to about 3.5% of the GDP of the country, which is in par or a little better than what it is in most developed countries. Even today in China and other places, this will be even higher. So to get to about 3.5% of GDP is what the capital goods sector would look at. And this is very doable. We are talking of doubling the CAGR to above 11% growth to get here and doing it over a 25-year period. That's a long period of sustained growth. Now, is it going to happen in a very smooth way? Obviously, no. We'll have to look at, like I said, the next part of the question is, how is it going to happen? It's probably going to happen in a certain waves. It's going to be a period of very high growth and then maybe moderating down, and then again, maybe another wave of growth. Now, we are seeing the current budget and the current investments coming into capital goods sector of anywhere up to 10 lakh crores as it's been put out in this budget would give the first level of impetus to get this sector moving. Now, that means if you're looking at a nominal GDP about, let's say, 10.5 to 11%, capital goods sector should expect a growth of at least double this, at least about 20% plus in the immediate future. So that's a positive for the immediate answer. Yes, we have seen tough times. We're going to see some high supercharged growth maybe in the next phase, but then it'll moderate down a little later. So short-term answer first, people are investing in capital goods sector. You may not be doing anything wrong by getting here because this is going to see some high octane growth in the immediate future.
I see. That's always good to note it. So, for an investor to keep a watch, keep a close tab on these sectors, what are the few things internally, because Kirloskar Group has very wide presence across various industries and sub-industries, and what are the 3, 4, 5 things which you as a team monitor to ensure that India is on its track? So one is of course the nominal GDP, the normal growth, that continues. But the few important parameters when you look at this sector, if you can just list down that maybe 2, 3, 5 factors.
Yeah. So growth is a consequence of competitiveness. So I'm going to say that the first thing that we all look out is what is our sustainable competitive advantage which offers us growth. Now, competitive advantage comes from 3 baskets. One is in terms of inherent competitiveness based on cost competitiveness, your advantages being on the geographies and markets that you currently operate on. The second comes from innovation driven competitiveness, which is really being on the value chain, going up the value chain, doing things which others are still working on, which comes out of investments in R&D, investments in developing new things. And the third one is getting some certain advantage coming from the value chain. Either you own resources or you get access to resources which are constrained and not available as much to others. Now, being in India, we're going to always have this challenge of resource constraints, be it capital, be it the price of energy, be it logistics cost. These are all will remain for a foreseeable future a disadvantage. What will bring us advantage really is the soft power, our ability to engineer products, engineering solutions, largely based on our gray strength, our people strength, would be something which would give us an edge compared to others. So this is what we believe would allow us to compete, even though there could be a disadvantage to an extent on the cost basis. There is a lot of improvement that's being planned even on this space, be it in logistics, be it in cost of capital, be it in ease of doing business, but it'll take its time. I call this collectively as a democracy discount. You will have to accept that in a democratic environment, certain costs are inherent and that will not go away very quickly.
Wow, very interesting thing. You coined the term, the democracy discount, and despite that democracy discount, but I think when we look at democratic discount, I think the China probably is the worst of, despite being non-democratic. So I think nowadays the discount is probably turning in our favor. But nevertheless, let me move to the, now, the Kirloskar group, which has a legacy of more than 133 years, and that brings huge experience on table across various business cycle, particularly how nimble one needs to be, since you are into a cyclical business, and more importantly, how agile one needs to be, considering that industry is always competitive. In the recent annual report, I think there is a rebranding of Kirloskar Group to called Limitless. Am I right? And it's very, very interesting annual report whereby you gave the 360-degree view across the various things, whether it's innovation, the employees, the productivity, the technology part, the IoT, and many more things like that. So can you just give us what is your the understanding of word limitless, and how do you make sure that it actually results into significantly higher growth for the company when industries, let's assume, going to grow at say 10 to 12%, as you said, over next 20, 30 years, is going to be 10 to 12% CAGR growth, compounded growth for the sector. And for you, it is going to be limitless. So how, as a shareholder, one should look at it?
Yeah. So first is on the rebranding. The Kirloskar Group itself is still in the midst of its, let's say, finding its path forward. What we believe at this part of the Kirloskar Group is saying that the opportunities and our ability to deliver are limitless. Limitless by definition means it's got no constraint as it is imposed from outside. So the opportunities are limitless. The thoughts that we can have to achieve these opportunities are limitless, and we would aspire to maximize on this. That's a whole concept of saying that we will be limitless in our aspirations, ambitions, and working to maximize on these things. Now, coming back to the way we are structured, this part of the group itself has got foundries, manufacture of engines, pumps, a whole lot of things. It's pretty much vertically integrated, and it's into multiple capital goods sectors. There is a financial services business, there is a real estate business. The group itself is multifaceted, looking at the various opportunities for growth. And that again brings us to the concept of being limitless in our aspirations and dreams for the modern India. Having been in this business for so many years, the group has inculcated certain values which help us to perform on a consistent basis, and that's important as well. So the six values that we cherish are something which is a guiding principle on which we will work on. Limitless in our dreams and aspiration, but rooted on realities and values.
So basically, my another question, which was, related to that, is if you can, since you are one of the leading player in compressor industry, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you would have about what 25-30% market share, or probably even more, when it comes to CNG stations installation of KPCL compressors. So is there any correlation between, say, capital goods sector generally, I'm saying from the macro perspective, top down perspective, and the compressor industry? Are there any global learnings between the linkages between the sector in general and compressor in particular?
Yeah, so I'll spend a few minutes on the Kirloskar pneumatic business.
Yeah.
We are in the compressor and compression systems business, unlike companies which are pure compressor manufacturers. We do compression systems. So our business broadly is in three verticals. We have the air compressor business, we have the refrigeration compression system business, and we have the gas compression system business. Roughly the split between the three is about 20, 30, 45. That's what the 195 comes from. 5 is all the other things put together. So that's a split. In the air compressor business, we are relatively small. There are other players who are bigger than us in India. But the only difference I would put on the table as far as air compressors are concerned, we are a little bit of a later entrant in this. We were not making screw compressors for many years. We now have gone into this. We had a choice some years back. Would we like to get a technology partnership, a know-how, and get into this business? Or we would take the more difficult route of developing our own know-why, creating our own IPs, and moving forward. We chose the latter, which meant that we tied up with City University, tried to design our own screws, design our own compressors, and that's a route that we chose. And today I can say proudly that we have a state-of-the-art machine, highly customized, end-to-end manufactured by us, right from the castings, the impellers, the screws, the rotors, the whole thing is manufactured within our system. We believe we have a contemporary and a competitive product, and we will scale up going forward. That's the air compressor business. To give you an idea, this is a globally very large market, about $30 billion. So the opportunity to grow in this is humongous. The market itself is seen as what is called as this as an industry is seen as what is called as a local industry, which means you have to manufacture this locally in all the markets that you need to address. There are certain products that you can sell them locally so that you can customize it, offer services, etc. At the moment, our target market is India. Consequently, we are small in this. Going forward, hopefully, we should get bigger. Now, getting to the refrigeration compressors, we do two parts in this. We do the ammonia-based reciprocating compressors for the cold chains, ice plants, fisheries, dairy, food processing, etc. We are a leading player in this. We would probably have a 70% plus market share in this. We offer these as bare shaft compressors and allow the OEs to build the ice plants or cold rooms themselves. So we help them to set up processing capability at the site. So that whether it's for a fisheries, whether it's for a pharma company, the OEMs would build the plant, but we give the compressors. We also make large capacity hydrocarbon refrigerant based compression plants, refrigeration plants. This we do it for India, and increasingly we're trying to do it also for the MENA region, largely handling hydrocarbons. It could be for the oil and gas space, fertilizer, petrochemicals, etc. These plants are expensive. They would be anywhere between 20 crore to 100 crore plants. And we build them on skids with our design, our engineering, ready to use, and we install them at various sites. We are probably the biggest in this in India. The third vertical I mentioned is the gas vertical. In the gas business, we have two parts. Like you mentioned, on the CNG stations, it's a bit of a duopoly. The two of us are doing most of the CNG stations. Here it is a complete end-to-end. We build our compressor, we build the package, we install it, and we also do the O&M, which means operations and maintenance. The second part of the business is building large gas compression packages. This could be for the upstream gas gathering, midstream processing, or downstream dispatch of gas through the pipeline. So we do it for all the three stations. Again, these are large packages, anywhere up to a 100 crore each. We do it for India and for the MENA region. Again, probably one of the largest players in this space in India. Now, these are the three verticals. Now, you ask me how relevant is the compression business for the economy? Let me put it this way. If you look at the evolution of energy, most energy started with solid energy going from wood to coal and thereon. Then it moved to liquid energy, which is really hydrocarbons, oil really, and then refined oil in the various forms, diesel, petrol, etc. Clearly, there is a gasification of the energy basket. We have moved to natural gas, biogas, hydrogen, and thereon. So the energy basket increasingly will get gasified. The easiest first step would be natural gas, which is what is the world using up. But at the same time, there is a strong pressure to blend at least this natural gas with biogas, which is what they call as compressed biogas, which is also getting used, which is also getting pushed by the Indian government now. And going forward, a significant part of it would get converted into a hydrogen economy. Handling gas is our core competence, which means it needs to be compressed, conveyed, communicated, and delivered at various points. That's our core activity, that's our business. So we see a very critical role for KPCL going forward. As the economy moves more and more towards a greener economy, it would go through phases of moving from liquid to gas. And a part of that, even if it is to start with hydrocarbon, natural gas to start with, it would gradually move towards a green economy, and we would have a core role to play in all this.
Sure. Sure. So, sir, the other way to look at this business is also kind of a, types of compressor, like, screw compressor and centrifugal compressor and, reciprocating, compressor. And screw is the basically, is a more kind of a recent technology, primarily for small and medium. So if you do your breakup between screw and centrifugal and reciprocating, then how that mix will look like?
Yeah. So in terms of the technology of compression, the traditional oldest was the reciprocating compressors, and we continue to be a leader in this space. Now, reciprocating compressors itself has got multiple things. The air compressors could be of modest technological progress, but they also packages which handle, let's say, LPG, hydrogen, CO2, a whole lot of methyl acetate, a whole lot of other exotic material. For all that, the reciprocating compressors are even more evolved and complex. It could be all kinds of things, and we are clearly leaders in this. We are doing well in this space as well. Now, most of the high pressure compressors used in the gas gathering stations, etc., or in the CNG packages are all reciprocating compressors. So, this is a traditional technology, but hugely modified, changed, improved, that it's still very contemporary and used in most of the critical applications. This development wise, the next that came in was a screw compressor. This is a standard, easy to use kind of compressor, doesn't allow for too much of customization, largely operating in middle pressures or even lower pressures, but easy to run and maintain. This is a very standard kind of a product in terms of volume in air compressors. This would probably be 70% of the market. We are a late entrant doing well in this. But having said that, we are also in refrigeration, be it with ammonia or with other refrigerants. We have developed our own range of these refrigeration compressors, screw compressors. We call them the Kione range compressors, entirely designed, launched by KPCL during the last year. We are scaling this up, and this can become even bigger and better as we go forward. The third one is what is called as the centrifugal compressors. Centrifugal compressors are essentially a lot of them, but they also package compressors which are
Hello, sir.
assembling a lot of them. But we are a complete end-to-end centrifugal compressor manufacturer. We do that for all the castings. We are now getting into the forgings as well. We do the impellers, we do the high-speed gears, and then we do the entire centrifugal systems. This is high technology, high end, and this can drive growth going forward. So I must also leave a word here. The technological changes and progress in the compressor modest, in the sense there is no large technological obsolescence coming up. Company is not going to see a big change that everything disappears overnight. Even in the more modern world where the automotive engines would change, the IC engines would change, the way energy is generated and consumed would change, there is very, very little chance of obsolescence as far as our business is concerned. So there is a technological stability. But this brings two things. If there is a technological stability, the changes are modest, which means the only way you compete, most people would end up having the same thing. The only way you compete is to get those incremental improvements, incremental changes, and incremental efficiency improvements. And this is what we are working on. Good that it doesn't get obsolete. Bad is that you're also not going to see some dramatic changes very soon in this space.
So, sir, you mentioned that air compressor is roughly $30 billion globally, and that is basically relatively new space for you because you entered into the screw segment. You are the late entrant. So, what will be the market size globally for refrigerator related and gas related?
Yeah. So the refrigeration compressors, including commercial and comfort, could be anything up to 35 to 40 billion dollars. Business could be almost the same. Compressor business is roughly $4.7 billion, and the compression systems business is roughly about $24 billion.
Sorry, sir, you might need to repeat the number because I think in between there is some
Yeah.
internet connection issue. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know.
So I'll explain. The refrigeration compressor business, which includes commercial and comfort. We are not adding commercial and comfort in what we target. Comfort would include, let's say, the refrigerators at home or the air conditioners at home, etc. Is over $30 billion. It's a big market.
Okay.
Now, coming to the gas, the compressor business for gas is about $4.7 billion, but compressors alone are never sold. It's sold as a compression system. The whole package is sold with all kinds of other things. And that is as high as $24 billion.
Oh, I see.
The
So you're
nice
saying
thing
that.
about both these global, all these three global industries are continuing to grow, and that's what I mentioned in terms of technological obsolescence. Growth rates are anywhere between 3.4 to 5.5%. A global growth of 3 to 5% is pretty large, because if you
Sure.
talk of a global economy itself growing at only about 3.5%, this
Absolutely.
means that this is growing across the world GDP plus, which is very, very unusual in any technological product.
Absolutely, and that basically, that's the reason why, in fact, even we like your business because our first, so we follow 3M approach, and the first aim is the size of opportunity. And when your size of opportunity is huge, running into billions of dollars from the global perspective, if you have the competency and the competitiveness, then surely you can make your mark in the
Absolutely.
export segment. So, sir, just getting a little bit further deep diving into the refrigeration related compressor system, where you stated $30 billion, including commercial and comforter. But commercial and comforter, you are not into that. You are not targeting that segment. Am I right? So if one excludes that, then what is the global market size?
Yeah. So what we are going to do increasingly is we are into industrial refrigeration, which really is a process refrigeration.
Yes.
We are getting into a certain level into the commercial refrigeration. If we're getting into, let's say, ice plants, cold chain rooms, food processing, to an extent, we are getting more and more into the commercial space. The Kione range will take us into the commercial space a little in the periphery. It's partly industrial, partly commercial. But increasingly, we believe as the opportunity scales up, we will get more into commercial space as well, though we will not do the entire package, because at this
Sure.
space they need the freezer boxes, rooms, etc. We will only make the bare shaft compressor and allow the local OEMs to do the rest.
Understood. So for the industrial side of the compressor, that would be how big?
The industrial side should be at least a third of it. About 10 billion out of the 30 billion is still be a lot of process and industrial activity.
Understood. Understood. And coming to your revenues, if I look at it, the refrigerator and the gas are these are the two biggest segment. And first let me look at the global side of it, the export side of it. Within this segment, the gas compressor would be the highest exports revenue, am I right? Roughly.
At the moment, see, our 9 months result is just out and we have shared
Yeah,
with it. We are just under 1,000 crore in 9 months.
true.
Roughly about 45% out of it is gas. We have exports out of that is about 150 crore, which is about 15% of our total sale at the moment is export. Almost all of it is gas compressors.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I
So,
think this trend will continue because I think there is a big market that's developed, particularly in the MENA region in the last year and a half with the development of, let's say, global markets, Europeans looking for gas from non-traditional source. They were always getting it from Russia. Now they have to look for other places. Consequently, the gas projects in the Middle East is booming. That means there's more opportunities out there for all of us.
yeah, so I just wanted to get a little bit more into the exports opportunities, because there are two ways to look at the global business models. On one hand, we have companies, for example, LG equipments kind of companies, and they believe that it is important to do the tie-ups, or I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, they would have acquired more than 15 companies in last 15 years or so, to ensure that they have the local manufacturing presence or to have the local distribution front end, am I right? And that's how they that's basically roadmap what they have selected, compared to your company where you are primarily India driven, no acquisition, no inorganic, and still trying to making inroads into the global markets. So what are the nuances? Is it more to do with the geography to which you are targeting, US versus MENA region, or what's the strategy here?
Yeah, like I explained, Rajesh, the air compressor business is a local industry. If you want to be a global player in that kind of an industry, you must be locally present in the market which you represent. The companies you mentioned are predominantly selling air compressors in all these geographies. They have to be locally present. They have to have local electricals. They have to offer local service. They have to offer local warranties and guarantees, a whole lot of things. So it makes sense for them to have local markets, and that way they either have to buy companies or tie up with somebody or have subsidiaries. So the whole business is local in nature. Now we are not doing export of air compressors.
Sure.
We are now exporting gas packages.
Yeah.
Now the gas package industry and the refrigeration package industries is a global industry. That means you can be present anywhere in the world and sell and service it anywhere else in the world. These are driven by engineering capabilities, a whole lot of PTRs, proven track records, acceptance by consultants, acceptance by the technical partners, acceptance by the EPC contractors. We may work with some of the biggest names, and once it's approved, we have to do engineering, the final product. We build the whole package on skids. They are tested on power at our sites. These are massive. They almost fill a ship when they go. They would be about 40, 50. A large 40-ton trailer container, which will take them, they almost take half a shipload. And they are ready to install and go at the site. Now, these are global businesses. You don't need to have local presence per se on a standing basis. People would go to the places where it is installed. At the time, they would have a 1 month work and then they're off. In our case, we don't do it like projects, we don't do site work. We build the entire package on skids. We have them tested on power at our sites. Some of these tests are 6 to 8 megawatt. We run them here, we test them, and then we dismantle and ship them on skids so that it's reassembled, installed at the site itself. And that's pretty short, quick work. The reason we do it this way is even in India, these kind of large oil or refrigeration packages are commissioned in fairly difficult places. Even to get a bolt or a nut in these places can be very time consuming. So this is the best way. If you're going to do something in Assam, you're going to do something in Kurdistan, you're going to do something in Bahrain, it's good to get them all done and then just do installation work at site.
Wow. So
So the
basically,
business model is in line with the business we try to do.
sure, sure. And currently, our target market is primarily MENA region. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's where the big opportunity is.
And till now, this demand was catered by what? Chinese players?
For the next year, we're just in the process of putting out a budget.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Sorry, Rajesh, go ahead.
No, no. Basically, what I was just asking is that till now this MENA region was scattered by Chinese players, or why all of a sudden India comes as a a supplier to cater to these requirements.
Yeah. So a couple of things. Like I said, these oil and gas businesses run through deep cycles. The price of oil at $60 a barrel meant that there were not many projects happening in the last 4 or 5 years. So the boom in projects has happened in the last year and a half. That's one. The second one is this is driven by proven track record, PTRs. It took us 7 years for us to be able to establish a capability to supply enough to do these big projects. This capability first working in India for the last many years. And now, as the opportunity comes up, we are being considered as a serious player for this package of us in the Middle East. And this, we are going to take it also now into Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia is another area we will start addressing from the next year.
So these are basically the large project-based kind of thing. Orders, what you get is basically a typical order size is, what kind of order size you get when you get it, particularly from MENA region?
See, the EPC contractor would pick up orders of 100 million and above. So this could be, let's say, a large gas gathering station. It could be a mid-level station for oil and gas processing, etc. The package for compression systems could be anywhere between $5 to $10 million. I mean, it could be anywhere for us, anywhere from 20 crore plus going up to 100 crore.
Oh, wow. Sure. And how do you see the growth opportunity in exports market over next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, sir?
Yeah. So let me take it in two parts. The first part is more of what we are doing today, which is really taking more of oil and gas packages and refrigeration packages. This we will horizontally expand to newer geographies. Like I said, Southeast Asia is something we'll add this year, and then we will see where else we can go. Our immediate visibility is this will continue to boom for at least the next 3 to 5 years for various reasons. One is there is a rebalancing of this demand, and then gradually uh, gas is better than coal, so there would be more of natural gas still being taken, but also there will be a pressure to move towards hydrogen, green hydrogen, etc. So there is this move on the gas front. This will continue 3 to 5 years. We will continue to address expanding markets for these products. As we do this, the second one we will try and build up is export of our other products like our air compressors, compression systems, etc. This would need a completely different model. Like you mentioned, we would need local presence, we would need other things in place, etc. That's something is WIP. We haven't announced it yet, so we will take time before we can make an announcement on that.
Sure. So, therefore, exports, which are roughly about 15% of your revenue currently, should one expect a steady increase in exports as a percentage of the revenue?
See, what we have made put out in public domain is our aspiration to have exports at least equal to 25% of our top line sales. Since the current model is largely driven by global package installations, it is going to be lumpy. So I don't expect it to be a very linear growth from the current 10, 12% to jump to 25. It could be a year of flat growth. It could be even a dip for a year or so, because this is a lumpy business by definition. As the second part of the export kicks in, it will become much more smoother and much more repeatable. That's the way it's going to be.
Got it. Got it. Perfect. And so, coming to, the gas business where, we have almost like a largest player in that particular segment, the government capex plays very important role for you because CGD expansion, naturally is a underlying demand growth driver. And last 6 to 9 to 12 months were not so great from CGD perspective. So how do you look at this industry, and what is your outlook for this industry, for underlying demand?
Yeah. So let me give the positive news first, and then I'll go back and saying where we are. There is a capex support announced for the OMCs of roughly 30,000 crores. So I think there's a lot more activity that is expected going forward. Now, looking back, up to the 11th round of bidding of PNRB has been done. That is the natural gas appellate body. Uh, Almost 80% of the country will be covered by natural gas pipelines. Where pipelines don't reach, they would be covered by what we call as cascades, which will work with booster compressors. So compressed natural gas is going to be available in very most parts of the country. Now, the pace of this installation and implementation has been hugely slowed down first with COVID and then with price of gas being what it is. I think this is behind us as we speak. The fourth quarter, we are seeing an uptick in the installations. The orders have all been put out because the up to the 11th round of bidding is complete. So we are a serious player in this. They have to install something like 8,000 CNG compressor stations in the next 5 years at least. So that's a big number that they have to put out. And for your idea, approximately each compressor system is roughly about a crore and 1.2 to 1.4 crores. So they have to put out about 8,000 of them in the next 5 years. Now, this is as far as the natural gas business is concerned. The government has also announced at least 5,000 biogas stations that have to come up. So biogas installation, collection, and this, there is a SATAT scheme that's been announced that the oil marketing companies have to buy this biogas and mix it with a natural gas pipeline up to 15%. Now, this 5,000 biogas packages will also have to come. The period is a little more flexible here. They talk of 5 years, it could go anywhere up to 8 years. The challenge here is the collection of biogas. Now, biogas material, biomaterial is a more difficult thing. It would have to come from spent wash of distilleries, from the sugar, molasses, or it has to come from the urban waste or poultry biomaterial, etc. So the collection of biomaterial is a challenge. 5,000 plants have been announced. That is supposed to eventually help the government to blend at least 15% of the gas in the natural gas pipeline with biogas to bring down the import intensity. Again, that's a compressor package. Depending on how the biogas is it made by water scrubbing or if it's made by membrane filtering? We have compressor packages for this, both the low pressure and the high pressure packages. We are ready. We have installed some trial compressors already and they're running. So we hope to supply at least a significant part of these 5,000 packages as well going forward. So this opportunity on the gas space is big. There is natural gas, there's biogas, and also the third one that will come up is the hydrogen in this space. Now, hydrogen, today generating hydrogen is pretty clear. They could go through the alkaline cell or the PEM cell route. Generating hydrogen, they're clear. The energy for the hydrogen could either be a green source or it could be a gray source, but generating hydrogen technically is clear. Transporting hydrogen is still work in progress, depending on where they need to consume it. Storage is a challenge because if you really have to put it on vehicle, etc., you need to carry it at 500 bar pressure and above. Storage for that kind of a pressure is going to be a challenge. So in situ consumption is what will start first. That means generation is easy. They have a diesel refining plant or a green steel making plant. They will generate and consume at the place of production. Then there is little to transport. Pressurizing is simple. We have compressors for it. We already deliver them for smaller capacities. We can scale this up. The challenge will come when you have to compress it to higher pressures and transport it to be used on vehicles, etc. Here we have taken up a project with IIT Bombay. We are working on it. We're also working internally. We will have our own hydrogen compressor ready, which can handle pressures up to 700 bar, which will be useful for transportation and for vehicle. So that's something work in progress. We hope to be ready before the user is ready.
Wow, that's fantastic. And technology is playing important role, and Industrial Revolution 4.0 is underway. So how Kirloskar Pneumatic is positioned when it comes to these changes in technology?
Yeah. The Kirloskar Group is the cutting edge of a digitization initiative. We are working with the Pune University. There is a digitization center that's been jointly set up by the group, where not only are we working on, it's called the C4I4, Center for Excellence in Industry 4.0. We not only working for building a pipeline of Industry 4.0 practices, but also train people to implement and run these processes across the industry. It's not just for only the Kirloskar Group, it's jointly done with the university. We continue to support it and see that this becomes a industry practice. All the group companies are working extensively on the digitization. Um, there are several things happening: connected machines, IoTs on almost all our compressor systems, remote monitoring, tracking. I'll give you an example. Last year, when we had this big crisis for oxygen, we worked very closely with DRDO under the PM's Care Fund to see that over 1,000 compressors were installed across 15 states to deliver 1 million liters of oxygen per hour in so many hospitals. It was a mammoth task. Uh, People read about the bad news of availability of oxygen, but people forgot that once this huge technological challenge was cracked and delivered, the problem was not only mitigated but also in a way protected that it wouldn't happen again. So,
Wow.
but there was not as much visibility on that, and all of us worked in a very 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 difficult because there was
Sure.
no oxygen available even for cutting and making our own cylinders, because
Oh, yeah.
forget, to make oxygen you need oxygen first. So it was a big
Oh,
challenge. So the entire industry pulled together. Out of the large quantity, we delivered maybe about a third of the compressors, but not that is not the important point. We delivered some of the higher capacity compressors, and all of them today are working in a non-industrial environment, hospitals with technicians running it, etc. And this would just not have been possible without IoTs and digitalization. Everything is digitally tracked and controlled, monitored to ensure that things are available, operational, and on call can be brought up if there is a crisis. So digital initiative is something that is a backbone on which we are developing the modern equipment.
great. First of all, I must say thanks, a big thank you to you for doing those kind of a job in a very very difficult and challenging situation. So I really appreciate your efforts for that. Sir, you said that exports, of course, your long-term target is 25%. But when it comes to the profitability, exports and domestic both are at almost similar profitability, or one is better versus other.
Yeah, see the EBIT margin today we are running on the compression segment about 18%. We are saying directionally the company's number would also move towards 18, 19%. Segment is already running at that.
Sure.
This year we had one large package that we did in the first quarter for exports, which was almost at very, very low margin. This was some kind of a right to play demonstration. We took an order at a price because we needed to get at least one big showpiece order, and that margin was low. But otherwise, we expect that the margins, and they did come back in the other quarters. We expect domestic and export margins to be the same on a short term. Longer term, it will move. But short term, we expect domestic and export margins to be about the same. We are about 18% in the compression segments, 18, 19%. That's directionally what we said the company's EBIT margin itself would be. And going forward, this will only improve. Our direction longer term would be to get it to about 20%.
I see. I see. But one is of course the competitiveness in the global market when you are receiving such exports, the prestigious orders. Do you think the pricing power is in the is in our hands to improve margin, or do you think it will more of the cost efficiencies which you will try to build upon from here, which will drive your margins?
Yeah, so we have to be realistic. See, anybody who's buying an Indian product is buying it because it is cheaper than what he can get from a European or an American supplier. You would probably get the same or a better
Sure.
price compared to a Chinese, but he's not going to give you the same price as what you would give to a European. So we say jokingly that look, everybody wants from us European quality and Chinese prices. So This is something that all Indian companies are facing. We will all face it for some more time. And the only way we're going to compete and win is to be realistic and accept that people buy us because we are cheaper than others. And this being cheaper should come from our costs being more competitive, our volumes and engineering capabilities allowing us to get those costs down, not the margins down. So we have to get the cost down to afford those competitive prices, not just pricing as a way to get those orders. That's a challenge that we are all working on. We have still the democracy discount that we still have to work with. But the overall competitiveness based on our engineering capability, people skills is something that we will help us to compete going forward.
Just last couple of questions, since I think now we have only probably last 5, 6 minutes. One is, what kind of capital expenditure, you are planning over next 2, 3 years?
Yeah, as far as KPCL is concerned, the business that we are running is not very capital intensive. We giving a guidance that my capital intensity to sales is roughly about a third. That means I need $30 of capex to do $100 of sales. So it's not a very capital intensive. I get about 3 to 5 times of capital investments as top line sales. So that's a pretty good number to work with. And this, in a way, includes also a certain increase in working capital that will come with the addition of sales.
Okay.
So I'm not very cash intensive per se
Yeah.
for growth.
Yeah.
There is enough growth capital in the company. We are a debt-free company. We're sitting with about 200 odd crores of cash, and we also are a very old company with assets on the ground that are monetizable at appropriate time to release growth capital. So we are quite comfortable as far as the capital requirement for our growth aspiration. The leg for growth that would also need to kick in. You did mention in passing that we have not done any acquisitions, we have not kicked in any inorganic growth possibilities. We continuously keep scouting for that as well, but it has to fit a template. We are not going to be obsessed with trying to grow somehow.
Hello. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. So we are not going to be obsessed with trying to grow somehow. We have to have a fit, and then we will look at opportunities for inorganic as well. The other thing that is yet not fully visible, but I've been talking about, is innovation-driven growth. We have revived our R&D registrations with DSIR. We have started filing significant number of patents. The Kione range of compressors is a part of our in-house innovation. It's our patent. We have filed it. So we will see a significant amount of innovation-driven growth also kicking in. The innovation growth is always an S curve, a lot of effort, very little visible results, and then you hit the tipping point, and then you start seeing big results. So going forward, it will not be a capex intensive growth. It will be an effort intensive growth, both from innovation as well as from inorganic opportunities.
Wow. So globally, this industry has oligopolies kind of a model where you have only few players globally, like Atlas Copco, Ingersoll now is already part of Atlas Copco. You have Doosan and Cobelco and few other players. In India also, if I look at this industry, is actually fairly consolidated industry. Only 2, 3, 4 players, may not even four, I would say. Only 3 players probably dominating the industry. So I'm just trying to understand what is the strategy of the companies like Atlas Copcos of the world. Do they think that it is better to further look at any joint venture possibilities or any opportunities or complementary things where they might be expert into certain extremely high-end, high-tech products, whereas there might be Indian companies like KPCL, which might be a little bit at the mid segment of it, and any technological tie-ups or something like that, or everybody's going to basically just look forward for their own share and to grow the pie.
Yeah. So if you look at the global competitiveness of this industry is predominantly now with 5 or 6 very large players and local players in very many markets. So first is on a global scale, this 5 or 6 large player, almost all of them are continuously going through a change of control. I won't say ownership because most of them are private equity owned or mutual fund owned. So they're all being going through change of ownership or control. They have been adding and subtracting. None of them have stayed with the same set of owners in the same form for many years. So this is a very mature industry. There is not big attraction to be invested on this long term. That's why all the names you mentioned have seen either additions or subtraction, part sale, etc. Newer companies are bought and sold. There have been companies like GE has sold some parts,
Yeah.
Siemens have bought some parts. So this is an industry that's moving. Moving simply because it is not growing in those markets.
Oh, I see.
That's the reason why the ownership keeps moving. Now, if you look at the Indian market, except us and one other Indian owned company, all others are again the multinationals who are having an operation here. So they are operating here on the strategic call of their parent. They don't do everything here. They don't do everything in any one market. So they are looking at a global maximization and not in terms of specifically growing or have a separate strategy for India as a whole. The other Indian company obviously is India centered, and they also have a significant export arm, and they're doing reasonably well. For all of them, the multinationals, they all look at opportunities for acquisition, etc. KPCL has remained with the Kirloskar group for 64 years, and as I can see it, the best is yet to come. There is no reason for us to be looking for associates or partners. We are in a phase of growth where we can grow based on our inherent strength and maximizing the opportunities that's available to us.
Sir, in your past avatar of Carborundum Universal, the company has grown manifold through organic, inorganic, of course, right capital allocation, right profitability, and currently is a name to reckon with. What are the key things which you think are probably relevant even for KPCL, looking back your journey at Carborundum, and you have a wide experience of making the company truly global in all standards, being technology, be it cost, be it marketing, be it sales, be it innovation, be it new products, be it diversification across various markets, reducing the dependence on customers, and so on and so forth. When you look at KPCL, this is the last question on my side. How do you basically aspire? What is your aspiration over next, 5-10 years? I'm not talking about 1-2 years. I'm talking about the next 3-5-10 years. How do you see KPCL in that overall scheme of things?
Yeah. So, few words. Carborundum also was a small company and grew multifold in about 20 years' time.
Yes.
And pretty much the same kind of competitive environment. A lot of global players, very few Indian players, and how we could consolidate, bring all the Indian players in, and as well as grow based on a competitive advantage. And we said, if you need something, we'll have to go to the place where that something is available at a competitive price. That's how we went to Russia to make silicon carbide, etc. So we would look at the core strategy being essentially the same. We will compete based on delivering sustainable competitive advantage and value for our customers. So we'll do exactly the same. Look at innovation, look at our inorganic opportunities, and find how we can grow. Pretty much similar kind of competitive landscape, large global players, but they're not players who are hungry for growth. They are being managed for the current. So they're all in what they call as aristocracy. The best is behind them. So for us, the best is ahead of us. So really, we have to do exactly the same and see how we can find areas of growth and continue to be hungry for getting that growth.
Wow, that's fantastic. That ends our AAA Winner Series webinar. Mr. Srinivasan ji, I'm really thankful to you for sharing your insights, not only into the capital goods sector, but also how we are planning to transform this company to probably make it multifold from here on over next decades. Thanks once again for your knowledge, for your insights, and thank you every investors for being part of this Winner Series webinar. We will upload it on our YouTube channel as well, probably by end of the day or by tomorrow first half. And I continue to, we as a team will continue to make sure that we bring many more such industry stalwarts to get insights on investments and insights on the sector. With that, thanks everyone, and thank you, sir, once again for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, Rajesh, and thanks to all the people who were there on this call. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
all very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.